Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to another Once in a Wild Wednesday live stream, where each and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we do our best to go live across social media, including Spotify now and Instagram tonight, as well as Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So whatever you prefer, we're probably there. We'll do our very best to get on TikTok sooner or later, maybe with some casual live streams, or maybe we'll find out another way to be able to go live at the same time. But welcome back to another Once in a Wild Wednesday with me, Amanda, owner of Once in a Wild, which is a mobile zoo right here in South Texas. We are based in San Antonio. So if you would like us to bring the zoo to you in the South Texas area, please let us know and we can help you out with a classroom program, a birthday party, a petting zoo, animal therapy session, and much, much more. Well, welcome back to the live stream. I think we're just going to go ahead and get started here in a second. It's been a whirlwind of a week as usual. I hope you guys had a great week, but let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, welcome. If this is your first time tuning into the show, hello. Or if you're watching a rerun or a repeat of the show in the future, hello from the past. We do also always upload our YouTube video live streams for future watching. So there's so many to watch, by the way, on our YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, that is a great way to help us out, and it's completely free. So thank you ahead of time for doing that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, please do that. That is a great way to help us out, believe it or not. We're looking for more subscribers over there. We're also looking for more followers on TikTok. We're lacking there as well. I know we're not on TikTok right now, but head over to our TikTok. It is my favorite social media, so it might be yours as well. We're also all over the place. So whatever social media you like, make sure to follow us or subscribe to those social medias, if you will, and that way you can keep up with what we're doing here at Once in a Wild. If you love animals, if you love cute critters and creepy crawlies and all kinds of stuff, we are the channel for you, and we are for everyone. We have furry animals, feathery animals, creepy crawlies, reptiles, amphibians, so many animals to enjoy and so many animals to learn about. And that's what we do here at Once in a Wild. If you have never seen me before, hello, and it's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. Please follow us if you're not already, like I already said. But what we do is we actually are a mobile zoo right here in San Antonio, Texas, and we can travel from classrooms to classroom to libraries to birthday parties, all kinds of events with animals. We provide all sorts of different services, including casual and more formal type animal encounters, and we have something for everyone. So if you love animals, of course you do. You're here, right? Watching the channel. If this show has landed on your algorithm, you probably love animals in some capacity, right? So we are for everyone. And even if you're not in our area, of course, we can bring the zoo to you virtually as well. We can actually do a private Zoom with your class, with your birthday party, whatever it might be. And you get to pick the animals that visit your Zoom, or in person if you happen to be in our area. We can travel outside of San Antonio within reason. If you ever have any questions of how far we can travel or what it's going to cost and whatnot, please let us know. There's many ways to contact us. You can contact us right here on social media, or you can actually go to our website, onceinawild.com, and it's got all of our contact information, including our number, as well as the ability to request a contact from us. You can give us your information and we'll call and email you back, or text you back as well. We can text as well. And Ricky is reminding me to tell you guys to tag a teacher. So tell all your teacher friends and your mom friends and your dad friends and everything that have, of course, kids in their life or students in their life. We are very, very good for schools, if I do say so myself. We can even coincide with your TEKS and curriculums and all sorts of things. So please let us know. We can work out something for you, I'm sure. So we can always find a solution. If it's a budgeting issue or anything like that, we can help you out. We are very specialized in that. So let us know and schedule as soon as you know, because we are filling up our calendar like crazy. October has been extremely popular in particular. Not the worst surprise, because October is always popular for animal programs. If you didn't know, creepy crawlies, things like that are super popular during spooky season. And speaking of which, we've got some public events coming up. One in particular is the Once Upon a Party event, which is led by them, but that's going to be over at the San Antonio Botanical Gardens, which is on October 29th. It's going to be in the evening. I believe it starts at 4 o'clock and it goes pretty much all evening. And but if you want details on that event coming up on the 29th of October here in San Antonio at the Botanical Garden, you can visit our website, onceinawild.com, and we've got the event posted on our website, and you can actually get your tickets with the link that's provided there, and it'll show you all the exact time, what to expect, blah, blah, blah. It is super family friendly, and it's not a scary event at all for you tiny kiddos out there. You will be just fine. Speaking of which, this is a family friendly show. We want to make sure that everybody knows that if you are going to comment or ask questions down below, that is certainly welcome. Please ask all the questions you would like on the live stream or really during any animal program that we provide to you guys. But make sure it's family friendly with your questions and comments. If not, we will delete them. We will make sure to do that because this is a family show, as you might imagine. All ages can watch the channel. It is for everyone, not just little kids, but also we want to keep it friendly for little kids. So please be appropriate and keep it family friendly out there. But other than that, feel free to ask me anything you would like. And we are going to bring some animals on the animal show today, but I want to make sure we talk about all the things at the beginning of the show, like I always do. Events coming up, like I said, on the 29th of October. I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but that is the biggest one that I know is open to the public. But please stay tuned to our social media, and that's why you got to follow us and keep up with that to make sure you know what's going on. And if we have other public events coming up, we're actually going to be over at the San Antonio Market Square for Dia de los Muertos as well, but I don't think it's actually on that weekend. So that's going to be a different Sunday that we're out there, I believe. So please check with our website, onceinawild.com, and social media, and we'll always post when those public events are. That means you can come on in. Usually they're free or there's tickets for you to get, and you can come on in and enjoy the animals. For the Once Upon a Party event, which is a collaboration event with Once Upon a Party, obviously, that is going to be for us, we're going to have a Harry Potter photo opportunity for all ages. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have our owl. We'll have some other animals like our white ferret, of course, some snakes, probably the bullfrog, tarantulas, bugs. What else? All sorts of creatures, probably a bearded dragon, because dragon, right? And many more. And then over at the other side of the event, we're going to have our petting zoo. So that's going to include like some ducks and our giant rabbit and guinea pigs. Another bearded dragon will be over there. We have two, so that would work out fine. And we'll have tortoises over there as well. So there's going to be something for everyone. And that event's also going to have a lot more things going on other than Once in a Wild activities. There's going to be, like I said, photo ops and petting zoo opportunities with us. But there's also going to be, of course, the Disney characters, the Marvel characters, and many more. I'm sure villains will be running around for the spooky season. But it's a very family-friendly, really for all ages. You don't have to have a child, I don't think, to attend. You can take yourself and your family of all ages to the event if you want to, and that should be a lot of fun. It's always been a lot of fun. So this is it's not the first time we've done it, so I highly recommend it. So come on out and support us, and we'll see you there. So that's all that's coming up that I can think of. There's one event at the San Antonio Market Square and the Once Upon a Party, but please stay tuned because I'm sure there's going to be more popping up here and there. Sometimes events are super last minute. Speaking of which, if you have an event, like I said, please book early because we want to make sure and get you in the calendar at least, because you never know when someone's going to book over your date and then you lost the date. Please be flexible as well. That's one thing I recommend for like birthdays and things like that. Consider Friday evenings, consider other dates, consider other times, and we'll try to work it out for you as best we can. We can only do so much, but we do our very best to book all that we can, as you might imagine. Thanks ahead of time for booking with us, by the way. And it can also be virtual, like I mentioned before. So we're for everyone. You don't have to live in our area to experience Once in a Wild. In fact, during the whole pandemic, we actually were virtual for pretty much a year straight. We did a little bit here and there in person, but it was very, very limited, as you might imagine. So going virtual was a big thing that helped us out a lot and helped you guys with your animal programs that you could still get them, right? Lots of classrooms, lots of little birthday parties and things like that would hire us for the virtual, and that's for all ages. We would do some college classes as well, so I can gear it towards college. I can go all the way to preschool. It doesn't really matter. We can talk about all sorts of animal facts. We would just, talk a little bit different to little kids versus older kids versus adults and things like that. But everybody enjoys it and everybody can learn something. That's one of my favorite things about being in this type of career path is you're always learning something. And animals are always teaching us something new, right? So whether it's just learning about animals' natural history and their physicalities and their adaptations and their biomes, or it's learning about the individual animals themselves. Maybe we're talking about animal training, enrichment, how we take care of the animals. In fact, I just got a call yesterday Well, I take that back. I got an email from yesterday from, I think she's a teacher, but I know she handles some of the programming for some of the kiddos at her school, right? So whether she's a teacher, whether she's administrator, I'm not really sure, or maybe just a PTA operative. I'm not really 100% sure, but I think she's a teacher. But anyway, we were just chatting about having a program out there coming up for the winter, actually, but she's thinking way ahead, which is wonderful. That's the best way to do it. Sometimes I like to know what to expect months in advance, but you don't always get that advantage or luxury when you're in events type business because it can be very random and all over the place. But it's nice to have some that are scheduled ahead of time. So she's actually planning ahead, and what she's focusing on is actually animal care. So they're going to be talking about kind of unusual pets, and not necessarily encouraging the kids to get unusual pets because they're like first and second graders that we're talking about here, and they really shouldn't have any pets on their own anyway, to be perfectly honest with you. Pets are not toys, and they're not really for little children. However, there's a lot of desire when it comes to being a little kid and having your own weird pets. You can want a fish, you can want a lizard, whatever it might be. So she thought it would be a great idea to teach the kids about proper animal care and have them kind of like build a little model animal enclosure just for like their class or for fun. So like a model version of, like, for example, maybe it's I'm trying to think of a good example. Maybe they're building an enclosure for like an iguana or something like that. And iguanas actually need a lot of space. So they would need like a big outdoor habitat and maybe like an indoor option too. And maybe they can, talk about how we're going to feed the iguana and things like that. So that's just one example, but we figured out that we want to kind of bring 3 animals that are very different, but also could be a pet, but an unusual pet or a more advanced pet for certain people. So iguana is a great example there, which is a terrible pet, to be honest with you, but people do have them for pets, right? And in order to care for them properly, you would have to really think that through. So that's what the whole presentation is going to be about. So that's just something super unique that I was really excited to hear that she wanted to discuss. And that's one of my favorite things to actually teach people about, because I don't always get to talk about the animal's actual care, like individual animals or certain species, but it's a great idea. So if you want me to focus on animal care, husbandry, maybe you guys are learning about, maybe you're learning about farm animals or something like that. We can bring our ducks and we can talk about how to take care of ducks properly, what to feed ducks, because a lot of people don't know how to feed ducks. They go to their pond and feed them bread and things like that, and bread is terrible for ducks. So there's a lot of education to be had. There's so many things to talk about in this field, which is my whole point for my rant, right? And my speech that I'm giving you right now, is there's so much to talk about, which I love. We even have a live stream where I focused on animal movies, of all things. I'm a huge movie person. I love cinema. So I was talking about my top 10 animal, like live action animal movies with real animals in them. And of course, they're mostly older movies because a lot of animals nowadays are CGI, which is not really my favorite, to be honest with you. So I really appreciate, though, when CGI is gotten right in movies. But we were kind of talking about all of that. So that's even an aspect in my field, because there's animal training and things like that. So a little bit about me really fast before we get started with today's animals is I have worked in all different types of animal jobs, including animal training, zookeeping, pet store, veterinary, you name it, I've probably done it. I haven't done a ton of large animal other than zookeeping. I did work with a lot of large mammals in zookeeping, and I did train horses and work with horses when I was very young. That was actually my first kind of job professionally, was watching after horses, taking care of them and training them too. And I was like a teenager, you know what I mean? So I got started pretty young with that kind of stuff. I loved horses, but horses are expensive. So I kind of turned to a different route of exotic animals instead, which can also be expensive, but it's easier to kind of get into that field. And it's certainly easier to get into the vet field if you want to be like a technician or something like that. There's lots and lots of jobs there. So I tried out everything here and there as much as I wanted to. I didn't get into marine because I didn't want to swim for a living, and I get very claustrophobic. So, breathing with the apparatus and all that kind of scares me. So not that I'm afraid of the ocean, I think it's wonderful, but it's just not for me. I'm not a strong enough swimmer. I get extremely seasick. If anybody knows me out there, yes, I don't do boats. So marine stuff didn't really make any sense. I absolutely love SeaWorld. I think that might have been a possibility in my career path, but maybe working with sea lions or something like that, where I'm not swimming like an Olympic swimmer. It's a hard job, and I don't really like being cold, and all the water that you work in with marine mammals especially is super cold. So that just wasn't for me. So, but I, kind of visiting SeaWorld and things like that, there's more animals, at least in the old days when I was a kid, you had like bird training, and there was all sorts of different animal ambassadors and things like that. So I started kind of putting ideas in my head of what I wanted to do for a living. So that's a long story put in a one, couple of sentences. 3 or 4 sentences, but we also have a live stream about that too. So I have one way in the past that's about my career and my opinion of zoos and all sorts of things. And spoiler alert, my opinion of zoos is mostly positive because I'm in this field, right? So I definitely do support zoos as a whole. Are there bad zoos? Certainly. Are there good zoos? Yes, most zoos are good zoos, to be very honest with you. There's exceptions there, and you want to be careful with who you support and do your research, but most zoos have wonderful intentions and do take very good care of their animals. In fact, I would say it's really the majority of them that do a great job with what they have. Not every zoo has a ton of resources, like Disney, for example. Disney's Animal Kingdom has like unlimited resources basically, so they can give their animals literally anything they want to because they have so much money. But smaller zoos like us or etc., we do our very best. But with what we have, we definitely do our very best. So today, segue over to that. Hi, everybody. If you're just tuning in, my name is Amanda. This is Once in a Wild Wednesday, and Once in a Wild is a mobile zoo right here in San Antonio, Texas. And we do go live every single Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if we don't go live, we run a rerun that is live, that was filmed live. So we at least play something for you guys to enjoy each and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different. It's going to be very, very simple today. We're actually going to have only 2 animals on the program. We usually have 3. Sometimes we have 1 every once in a while. But today I need to feed some of my animals. So I figured I would feed 2 of them for you guys right here on the live, and so you can see them eat, and we'll see how they do. So the first one is a lizard, and the second one is also a lizard. And I never ever do this. I never bring an animal that was on last week on this week, but I am doing that today just because I do need to feed this animal. And I actually mentioned when we were talking about this particular lizard last week that next time I bring him on here that we would feed him, and we're going to do that today. I figured, why not? Let's just kind of keep it simple today. Everybody loves to watch animals eat. They're super cool to watch eat. That's one of the coolest things about caring for animals. And I figured I would compare and contrast the 2 lizard species that we're going to meet today because they're actually kind of similar, but they're also very, very different. So our first one's going to come out right now. Let's just go ahead and go for it, right? It's going to be BT. BT was on here last week when we were meeting 3 Australasian animals. And we met BT the lizard. Here he is. Oh my goodness, so cute. We met BT, this guy here. We met a cockatiel, which was Evie the cockatiel. And we also met a snake. We met the Woma python, who's named Logan. Logan, the baby Woma python. So this is BT. BT is a blue-tongue skink lizard. And these guys are actually pretty common throughout Australasia. They're found in Indonesia and other islands surrounding Australia as well. So not just Australia, but Australasia as a continent or as an area of the world. This is an Indonesian blue-tongue skink, which is one of the more common ones seen in the pet trade or in zoos or as animal ambassadors like he is. So he's a little animal ambassador. I do say he, but we don't know the gender of this lizard. These guys are almost impossible to tell their gender unless you see either mating behavior or something very, very obvious when they are maybe using the restroom and something shows itself. Other than that, you just have to kind of just know that you don't know their gender, and that's okay. They can be whatever gender they want to be. So we're a they, I guess, right? But BT stands for blue tongue, and the blue tongue skink does have a blue tongue, and we're going to try to see that today while they eat. So these guys are omnivores. They eat almost anything. They're kind of like a little garbage disposal of the lizard world. They're extremely not picky eaters. They're mostly scavengers when it comes to eating meat items, though. They're not super fast. So these guys can be a little bit... They can zip around a little bit to maybe get away from predators, or they can burrow a little bit, or maybe I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it, but they're not like a lizard that's going to run super fast, like marathon style. they're not a frilled lizard. They're not a basilisk. They're not an iguana. They're not even a gecko is much faster than a blue tongue skink is as far as running abilities. I mean, for crying out loud, look at their feet. Their feet are almost non-existent. One fun thing about the skink grouping of lizards, skinks are very, very closely related to legless lizards. So as you might imagine, legless lizards are really similar to this, just take away the legs, essentially. And legless lizards look like snakes, but they're actually lizards. And they do have residual feet that just don't exist anymore. But these guys are close, right? They have tiny feet too. So one thing that that this lizard does is they pretend to be snakes. That's one of their defenses. So a lot of animals in Australia and Australasia, Indonesia, etc., they'll avoid snakes because some snakes are dangerous, aren't they? We love snakes here once in a while, but some animals avoid snakes because they're kind of scary animals. To some animals, they eat other animals, number one, and also some snakes can be very dangerous to be bitten by. So looking like a snake in nature usually keeps animals from getting near you. That's one of their defenses, is mimicking a snake. Another one of their defenses is showing their big blue tongue. They have a blue tongue, which blue is a very, very rare color in nature, blue and purple, which we have a blue backdrop and a purple backdrop and a blue mat here in front of me here. So two very rare colors in the natural world. It does exist, of course. Some birds and some butterflies and all sorts of animals are blue and purple. But as far as like in general, if you see a flash of blue, that's typically scary to other animals because it's probably poison or it's probably something dangerous. Let's see if we will kind of hang out on the mat here. I think we will. You're so very cute. Now, I've never fed this animal on the live stream before, so we'll see how it goes. Can you see him or her okay? We're going to see how it goes. Oh, you don't even know what treat you're in for, buddy. Maybe we can see how they walk a little bit. Can you see that? Yeah, we can scoot along, right? Let's scoot along and show everybody how you scoot. Scoot. See the tongue? So they will stick out their tongue similarly to a snake. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Similarly to a snake, but it doesn't have a forked tongue, right? There's no fork on the tongue. So it's not in the same way that a snake would smell, but they're kind of like tasting around. They can smell with their nose too. These guys have taste buds though, and they can taste very well. Are you ready for your snack? I bet you are. So let's just go ahead and go for it, shall we? Now let's compare, let's talk about this lizard as far as their care. These guys are actually one of my favorites to recommend. You want the food? Will you eat in front of everyone? Yum. I bet you will, once you realize what's going on. Now we're putting him on the spot, aren't we? By asking him to just like eat in front of you guys. Let's just see. You want it? They may not. They may not do it. I'm gonna try. Yum. You can do it. Everybody is cheering for you. Let's try it. I also have to put it in a place where you guys will see. Here, what if I just stop touching you? Maybe you will just come over here and eat. So what I've got on the plate here is a bunch of different things. There is canned cat food, which is pate and also grain-free. And we have bananas. We have egg drizzled all over those items. And the egg is raw. And then we have little dry mealworms. And we also have supplements on top of the food too, which you need on your food, like calcium, multivitamins, things like that. Multivitamins should never be given in excess, just like about once a week tops, and calcium on every single meal. Now, you might be wondering how often you have to feed these guys. Most reptiles don't eat very often. This type of lizard, you can usually feed them a meal like this once or twice a week. And then throughout the week, you can give them live bugs. You can give them maybe a pinky mouse. You can, oh, there we go. Yes. I'm so pleased. There we go. Can y'all see? I don't want to disturb him or her very much. Our next lizard, I know, is going to eat very well for you, and you'll see everything. But this one, we're a little more shy because this is not something we are used to doing on the live stream. But good job, BT. So BT, what have you gone for first? You're licking something there. Do you guys see the tongue? Oh, you do. I see the monitor there. Monitor, this is a blue tongue skink. So the tongue is blue. They use their tongue, oh my gosh, to kind of slurp up their food, just like, any other animal. And they do have quite a big mouth, bigger than it looks initially, right? Oh, they're kind of facing away. Let's change it to this way. Yeah, change it. Go over here. Sorry. Delicious. So this type of lizard in the wild, they're going to eat anything they get the opportunity to eat. So they might eat snails. They might eat all sorts of slower bugs like beetles and things. They're not going to be able to catch super fast animals. They'll certainly eat dead things. Anything dead, they will eat it, as long as it's tastes good to them. So they'll eat anything small enough to eat dead, or they can eat things in pieces. As you can see, there's bananas as well. So fruits are fine too. They'll eat some vegetation as well. They're not super into like leaves. They're not grazers, so they're not going to eat a ton of grass or anything like that. Oh, that's super cute. There we go. Oh, y'all. Oh my gosh, look at it eating. It's so cute. Just look at that mouth. I wish I could hold it up to the camera a little bit closer, but I don't think they would eat. Can you see? So super cute. We're gonna keep moving this way because I think that would be better. Aww, because we'll turn and face a little bit better. Should I eat with him? I don't eat cat food. That's gross. Or raw egg. I do like eggs and I do like meat. I just don't like pate cat food. That's disgusting. They can eat stuff raw. They can eat dead stuff, a little rotten as well. They are a really good scavenger in nature, so they're super important that way. They also eat some bugs. Anything that eats insects is also very important. Any animal is important, by the way. But some animals that are like predators or scavengers, they're really cleaning up the planet and keeping it disease-free for everyone involved, right? But I have never in general, I don't know how we're going to do in the live stream right now, but BT, the lizard here, has never really refused a meal or a food item. I would say salad is probably the least favorite, and they don't really need salad. So let's talk about their care. I mentioned we were going to talk about their care. So you can give I call it a plate diet once or twice a week. You don't have to go this big every time. This is just a nice big show diet, if you will, for the show, right? This is about twice as much as I normally feed. They may not eat it all, right? But we can feed this type of diet on a plate. It can be various things. It can be different fruits. It can be different flavors of the cat food. It can be different meat. Sometimes they eat raw meat. Sometimes they eat pinky mice, things like that. All sorts of different variety, which is super important for an omnivore. That being said, they're super easy to feed. These guys are actually my favorite type of lizard to recommend for a pet, especially if it's your first pet lizard. They do get to a nice big size, but not too big. This lizard might grow to be about twice the size. They're one of the biggest type of skink in the world, but they're not huge. They're not an iguana. They're not a monitor lizard, etc. So they're not a tegu. They're not going to get huge. That is not a good idea as your first lizard to get a big animal like that. They're harder to house. They're harder to keep happy and healthy. These guys are not going to eat you out of house and home. They love to eat, but they're not going to eat a ton. They're just going to eat a couple plated diets a week. And then in between, maybe a couple times a week as well, you can feed them insects or maybe a pinky mice here and there. They are not going to starve to death if you only feed them twice a week. That is okay. In the wild, they're super opportunistic and they get what they get. And most reptiles too, they're super easy to feed like that. But these guys in particular, you don't have to feed them live bugs. They don't need to hunt. I do just because, it's fun and enriching for them. But they're perfectly happy eating dead stuff. So they'll eat dead crickets that you can buy dried, or they can eat like these dried mealworms, which are super easy to get. So what we have here again is banana, raw egg, some pate, grain-free cat food, and we've got dry mealworms on top. And sometimes they get crickets, sometimes they get dubia roaches, sometimes they get all kinds of stuff. Pinky mice, fuzzy mice. They're great. They're wonderful to feed. Always do your research before getting a pet lizard or anything, animal of any kind, right? But these guys are super easy to feed and take care of. They also have very little health issues. It's super easy to get their lighting correct. Their heat doesn't have to be exactly correct for them to be healthy. They vary. The one issue with the Indonesian blue-tongued skink and some of the other more humid habitated, is that a word? Habitat dwelling skinks is going to be their humidity. So you want to make sure and mist them a couple of times a day, morning and evening. Luckily, we have a whole room full of reptiles that need misting, so it's no big deal to mist another one. But if it's your only pet reptile, I can see that being a little bit of a pain. Maybe you want to go away for a couple of days and somebody's going to have to come over and mist your reptiles and turn their lights on and off if you don't have a automatic switch on and off and things like that. They are a diurnal species, so you have to have lights, and those lights have to turn off at night so they can sleep, right? They also don't need a ton of room. A 40, 50, up to 100 gallon, I guess, for this animal, but they're super easy to house. These guys are not a climbing lizard, so something kind of a little bit, doesn't have to be super tall of an enclosure. Big enough for them to live in, burrow a little bit. As far as their humidity, misting twice a day, like I said, doesn't have to be heavily. A big water dish so they can get in there as well and soak. You'll want to soak them like once a week if you can, especially if they're in shed. You want to soak them up until they shed. That's helpful. And their issue with shedding is not really getting the skin off. It's going to be it constricting their toes and little legs. So sometimes they can have shedding issues on their feet, so that can hurt their toes and things. Geckos tend to have that issue sometimes too. But honestly, if you get their substrate and humidity correct, And everything else is just standard, the way you take care of them. You know, you're cleaning them and everything else. They shouldn't really have any issues at all. Our blue tongue skink here, BT, he lives on cypress blend mulch. You can also do like reptibark, or you can do what's the reptisoil, some kind of reptile soil. You can do play sand and not just play sand, but you want to do organic soil and play sand mix. You want to make sure it's organic with no chemicals in it, right? But we just use the cypress blend mulch from Lowe's, and it holds moisture really well. He's got a big water bowl as well, missed twice a day, and there's been zero issues with that. So that's not a big deal for a pet lizard. Most pet lizards are far more difficult to take care of. Oh my gosh, look at the tongue. It is so cute. Do you guys see that at all? Do we look the same? Adorable. Yeah, they're great. They're also very easy to handle. They almost never bite. They can bite, but any animal with a mouth and teeth can bite you. They do have teeth. Their teeth are tiny, but they're there, and they have kind of a strong bite. I mean, in nature, they eat things like snails and the shell and all, and they eat hard food that way. But they're mostly eating soft things that they scavenge on. You guys are being awfully quiet out there, which is totally fine. I know you guys have a life outside of Once in a Wild, but hopefully you'll watch this back later. We are feeding BT, the blue tongue skink, currently right now. Are we already getting full? It looks like you have paused. You're in a food coma already. We're zoning out. Do you want to try some more? You're being awfully good and adorable. There we go. How well can you see? I know he looks kind of small on some of the social media here, but I think this is the best way to do it. This lizard is a little bit smaller in the head region than the second lizard, so you should be able to see that one very, very well. Now, again, this is a blue tongue skink. They come in different subspecies. This is an Indonesian blue tongue skink, but they come from all over Australia and Australasia, and you can find them in dry or humid climates, depending on the subspecies. And most of them get pretty big as far as the blue tongue skink lizards go, but there's many other species of skink all over the world as well, including right here in the Americas. We tend to have smaller skinks, at least in my area of the world. We have smaller kind of like, you know, they're like in your leaves and in your grass and your yard and things like that, and you almost never see them because they're good at burrowing. They're good at hiding under leaf litter and dirt and all kinds of things. They're really good at hiding and burrowing. Right. Oh, we're really enjoying our food. One thing you can't forget as well on their diet, like I said before, is going to be supplements. So things like calcium. Calcium with D3 is very important for diurnal or daytime lizards. It can be detrimental to their health if you don't give them calcium. Now, that is going to, of course, make sure their bones are not rubbery and things like that. They also do need proper lighting. But with the blue tongue skink, in my experience, it's super easy to take care of them. They don't tend to have super sensitive systems, if you will, if you don't get their lighting exactly right. Even if you get it a little bit right, they're going to be just fine. They're very forgiving as a lizard goes. They're not as much of a basking lizard, even though they're daytime lizards. They tend to be kind of more on the ground or even underground or burrowing, so they don't need a ton of UV. Natural UV is always best, so if you want to take them outside a couple times a week, maybe even more, to get them a little bit of sun, that is fantastic for them. Our animals tend to travel a lot, so they go outside quite a bit. This animal is extremely docile for programs. So this is one of our touch animals. You can even hold BT if you want to. This one does a lot of meet and greets and things like that. Show and tells, of course. You can certainly pet them, and kids and adults can even hold them too. They're very easy to hold. It's a great lizard species. They tend to be non-aggressive. One really neat thing about the species, it has nothing to do with how you feed them or anything like that, but it's their how they reproduce. These guys are actually live-bearing lizards. They don't lay eggs. Most lizards do lay eggs, don't they? We think of lizards hatching out of eggs. These guys, they hang on to their babies a little bit longer, and then mom just gives live birth, and they have a pretty big litter of babies, anywhere from 5, maybe even less, I guess, 2 to 5 to 12, sometimes even 20 baby lizards. They're super cute when they're babies too. They're an exact miniature of the adults. They're one of the cutest baby lizards, in my opinion, of all the lizards. I think geckos, chameleons, and skinks are some of the cutest baby lizards ever. So now he's slurping up this egg. Raw egg, delish. I'm sure you guys can see a little bit closer, but I don't want to disturb too much, right? You guys can see on Instagram a little bit. Oh my gosh, we're so cute. It's delicious slurpy egg. Yum, yum, yum. the tegu is actually, we have a tegu named Lulu. I thought about bringing her on the show too, but I don't really trust Lulu around food. She's kind of food aggressive, so I don't want there to be any accidents. I trust this lizard a lot more than Lulu. But Lulu is a Colombian black and white tegu, and she eats almost the same exact type of diet as BT. BT gets a smaller portion, obviously, because we're a much smaller lizard. Lulu will eat anything as well. But Lulu, the tegu, they're actually a South American species, the Colombian tegu, right? But there's other species of tegu too. Tegus are from the New World. These guys are Australasian. So how funny is that they have a similar diet and really similar care to a tegu, but tegus are just so much bigger than a blue-tongued skink overall. Most tegus are huge. That's like the Argentine tegu. Those are way bigger than the Colombians, which is what we have. We have a Colombian black and white tegu. She's not as big, and she's a female. Females are like half the size of a male as well. So we got lucky there in that way. You're gonna make a big mess and then run away? Is that how this works? Can I scoop you up? You know, you just ate and you're probably want to be left alone, but we'll just hold you a little bit longer. How about that? Look at that. We ate about 3/4, I think, of this diet. Did you want some more? Yum. If not, that's totally fine. I understand why you wouldn't want to finish all of it in one sitting, especially in front of everyone. Let's look at the food on your face. Can you guys see him? Might be too close with the way I have the camera set up today. I have the camera set up to view from here, not super close, but we're still cute. Super close, right? So we've got crumbs on the face. So normally they'd be fed like in their enclosure and then they can go get a drink or whatever. Maybe you're thirsty. We'll get you a drink right after the show, I promise. These guys do well just having a big water dish. They can get it in and soak a little bit if they want to soak their bodies, since they're a more humid type lizard in nature. So they do like humidity. But misting twice a day for like, honestly, just a few seconds at a time is more than plenty as long as you have the right substrate. And like I said, their main issue is going to be shedding. That's really their main health problem, as long as everything else is done fairly correct, to be honest with you. I've rarely seen a sick blue-tongued skink. These guys are so forgiving. That's why I really do, as far as them, I think that they are more suited as a first time or maybe second lizard friend for a pet. Things like that. That being said, I don't really recommend pet lizards for everybody. That is definitely not true. They are not for everyone, and that's going for like reptiles in general. They're still an animal to take good care of. We don't want to neglect them. They're not a toy. They still need to have their water changed and misted a couple times a day and clean up if they go to the bathroom and fed a few times a week and etc. and have their lights go on and off, and they're still alive and have lots of needs. They still need enrichment. They still need handling. You see how nice this lizard is though? But they're just one of my favorites. They're a very healthy overall lizard, like I keep saying over and over again. I feel for the animal most of all when I'm recommending quote unquote pets for people that ask. People ask all the time, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have an exotic pet or a reptile pet or a cat and dog or whatever it is. If you're dead set on one, you want to do it right? So I don't mind people asking that. That is fine. But they're really not for everybody. We want to do a lot of research, a lot of consideration, and it's always better to adopt rather than shop if you can. If you are looking to shop for a lizard friend, one great choice is a reptile expo. So you can actually look into like your local area to see when you're going to have a breeders expo come up, and that's when you can meet a lot of breeders of these guys or dealers of these guys, and those are oftentimes going to be a lot healthier stock than like a pet store or something like that. Now there are of course exceptions to the rule when it comes to being a pet store. Some pet stores are extremely specialized and very responsible, and that is fine, but we always want to make sure we're supporting the right kind of establishment, if that makes sense. Don't just impulse buy as well. A lot of people also, like I mentioned before, you can adopt. So you can adopt there's rescue groups for reptiles. You can look on Facebook or Discord or some other places. You can look at ads online or etc. to see if somebody is looking for a home for their reptile. You can ask around. If you ever have an animal that you're looking to place in the San Antonio area or really even anywhere, we can actually ask around for you if you have an animal you're looking to place. And it may end up with us. A lot of our lizard, this is one of the exceptions. We actually did buy him from a reputable source as a baby. We got a teeny baby BT about 5 years ago. Grew up just fine, and we're about half grown now, and we're a great animal ambassador. We were a little bit wiggly when we were a baby, but now we're great. These guys tend to be a little bit more anxious as babies. They're not usually a biter, but they tend to just take a little warming up to you. That's because they're nervous animals as babies. A lot of animals eat them in nature, so they might be just a little bit defensive. But this type of animal almost never bites. Every now and then you might get a sassy one, but they're great overall. But most of our lizard friends and tortoises and things like that, a lot of our animals in general are actually hand-me-downs. They're animals that people donated secondhand, things like that, maybe third hand, fourth hand, who knows. So we have a lot of lizard friends like that. In fact, the next lizard coming out next here in a little bit is going to be one of our rescue lizards or hand-me-downs, and we're super happy to have her. Once an animal does find its way to Once in a Wild into our care, they never leave. They're actually going to have a permanent home with us. So that being said, not every animal that people ask us about and call us and say, hey, can you take in XYZ animal? Not every animal ends up staying with us, but we can ask around. We have a lot of peers and different people that we know that may be interested in adopting that animal. So the best thing you can do is ask around, make sure that you're finding a good next home for your animal. If you don't want them anymore, if you can't take care of them, never ever do you want to release them into the wild. That's illegal. Even if it's a native species, it's illegal. And now if you got your animal from the wild in the first place, don't do that. That is not a thing. We don't recommend picking up wildlife or adopting wildlife without any permission. That is illegal as well. But I'm talking about if you have a pet that you got from a pet store or somebody gave it to you, etc., etc. Every situation is going to be different. But if you no longer can care for that animal or you want to give them away, etc., do not release them to the wild. That is illegal. Even if it's a native species, that animal no longer has any instincts to protect itself and has become used to human care. But we don't do that. Even animals that are taken in by rehabbers, they have to do a lot of work to re-release them in order to take care of themselves. And so you're not allowed to do that. Don't do that. Also, most animals that people have for pets and they re-release them, those are invasive species. That can be very, very bad for the natural environment around you. And most of the time, invasive species are also not adapted to the weather and habitats and all sorts of things. So they're not going to make it, frankly. They're not going to make it, or they could become a problem for other wildlife. So don't do that. You want to ask around. Ask the experts. I'm sure there's tons of resources in your area, but feel free to ask us as well. We have so many colleagues and friends in our network. We can help you out. I promise you, it'll be fine. So please let us know. There's also options like shelters, animal rescue groups, etc. Please don't just release them into the wild. It's very irresponsible. And also don't keep them if you can't keep them healthy. Frankly, do not just hang on to the animal if you can't take care of them. Okay, that's my advice to you. Well, BT, you did a great job eating for everybody. We have a very messy face now. There's crumbs, especially on this side. There's some cat food crumbs. It happens when you eat messy diet, but you did great. So this animal rather, ate banana, raw egg, dead worms, cat food. Delicious. Is that your dinner for tonight? Let me know what you're eating for dinner tonight, and we will compare and contrast. Again, an omnivore. Mostly a scavenger, but they'll also eat some live things as well if they can catch them. Okay, so that is the blue-tongued skink. We've learned a lot from last week and this week combined about the blue-tongued skink. Now you're an expert in the blue-tongued skink, and I'm going to give you a quiz right after the live stream. Surprise! You didn't know you were going to be tested, did you? Just kidding. We're not going to test you. Now, if you guys are teachers, or you know teachers that are looking for animal programs or some fun activities for the kids, we can certainly come up with some tests and quizzes for the kids. That is definitely something we can help you with. So you just let us know. We'll help you out. All right, I got to make sure I get BT all contained again. And we're going to bring out our next lizard friend. Remember, it's another lizard. We only have 2 animals on the program tonight, and one is a lizard and the other is a lizard too. 2 lizards, and they're both actually from Australia. Now, one is from Australasia, which means Australia and surrounding places. So like islands around Australia, like Indonesia. That was an Indonesian blue-tongued skink that we just met. The next one is only from Australia in the mainland, as far as I know. They're not from islands because they're not really a tropical or island-dwelling type animal. I could be wrong. Please, herpetologists out there, let me know if I'm wrong. If you're watching, I don't mind being corrected. I'm always learning. I don't believe, though, that these animals are found in any islands surrounding Australia. So not in Australasia, they're only found in the actual Australian mainland. So a big island itself, but how we think about Australia. So the next animal we're going to meet, a super common and well-known type of lizard. The blue tongue skink, in my opinion, is a far better pet, but this one's very close, actually, as far as being a good pet, I think, too. The main challenge with this lizard coming up next is going to be their health. Nothing having to do with personality. Nothing having... Oh, my goodness. What's wrong? Did you see the other lizard? She got a little bit sassy just now, but I think it's because she sees the other lizard. Don't be upset. It is okay. I'm telling everybody you make a good pet, and then you're going to be sassy with me. So this is Debbie. Debbie is a bearded dragon. We actually got Debbie from a secondhand situation as well. Are you ready to eat? You look cranky. I know what will cheer you up. This food. Debbie loves food. Here, Debbie. There you go. I think Debbie got a view of the other lizard, and this type of lizard is solitary. They don't really like other lizards. Now, they may share a region together as a female bearded dragon, especially. Female bearded dragons might be in the same region as other bearded dragons. Male bearded dragons absolutely hate each other, so they will fight. Female bearded dragons might tolerate one another, but I don't think Debbie would tolerate anybody as far as lizards go. So she may have seen BT down there. They're not put together, but they're in containers near each other. So I'm sure she was like, a lizard. Now, Debbie is a bearded dragon, like I mentioned already, and bearded dragons are also omnivores. So 2 lizards from Australia that are omnivores, but these guys eat a little bit differently. So a bearded dragon in the wild, they'll eat things like weeds, flowers, they'll eat all sorts of vegetation, but they'll eat fruit too if they can find it, but they're not going to be living in tropical regions where there's a lot of fruit. So by default, they're not really eating a ton of fruit. Whereas the blue tongue skink, especially in Indonesia, they'll eat more fruit. They'll scavenge on most things. Bearded dragons prefer to eat live insects and live animals. They'll eat things like little geckos, little mice. They'll eat tons of bugs. Bugs is going to be their favorite thing to eat and what they eat the most of. But they're also omnivores. So they'll eat things like weeds, like I mentioned, leaves, grass sometimes, flowers. Right now I'm feeding her a little diet of mixed greens. She's got cilantro, which is one of her favorite greens to eat. There you go, you can eat it. Yum. She's also got finely chopped yellow squash and sweet potato as well, just cut up real tiny so I can kind of sprinkle it on her salad. It needs to be small enough for her to swallow and eat up. She's being really cute right now. Don't you love watching the lizards eat? I do. And on top of the salad, I've also got the dry mealworms, just like BT had earlier. That's the easiest way to kind of, implement some insects into their salad. This one, though, does eat a lot of live bugs as well, like superworms, dubia roaches, and crickets. Crickets don't have a ton of meat on them. There you go. But they like them. It's more enriching than anything. Crickets are mostly shell. So if you're feeding crickets to your reptiles at home, or you've certainly heard of that with pet reptiles, of course, you want to make sure and gut load your crickets first. So you want to feed your crickets some foods that are good for the crickets and good for your lizards before you feed them out. But crickets are very stimulating because they wiggle around a lot. They run, they hop around. So that really gets your lizard excited about eating. So, but bearded dragons will eat anything, especially this one. This one loves everything to eat, don't you, Debbie? Here you go. In fact, she'll sometimes try to eat things that aren't edible, like the carpet or whatever. We have them on these mats to keep everything clean in case they go to the bathroom or anything like that. It also gives them some traction to grab onto. It's super comfy for them. It's good for shows and traveling programs. But anyway, these guys, man, they're typically garbage disposals and they love their greens, which is fantastic. And you can feed them all sorts of different greens, but we do mostly the mixed greens that you can buy all mixed together for you at Walmart or H-E-B or whatever grocery store you have, Kroger or whatever y'all have. Mixed baby greens, as long as they're rinsed and everything, super fine. They like cilantro. Different things that you can chop up. There's almost nothing that you can't feed them as far as veggies go. So you can kind of mix them up and do that. Collard greens are good for them too. You don't want to just feed iceberg lettuce or romaine lettuce. That's just mostly water. That's not going to give them any nutrients. No nutrients. But any sort of greens, they really like it. So this type of lizard, let's talk about their care, just to kind of compare to a blue tongue skink. The blue tongue skink, in my opinion, is much easier because of their health and lack thereof of issues when it comes to taking care of them. A bearded dragon, on the other hand, you have to get their lighting just right. So UV light has to be very good, and heat has to be very good and much, I would say somewhat hotter. I don't say much hotter on their basking spot than a blue tongue skink. Blue tongue skinks don't need as hot of a basking spot, in my opinion. In fact, in the old days, we kept them with almost no lights at all, and we just kept them with like heat pads. I'm not saying that's okay because we know better now, but there's multiple ways to take care of any animal, right? But this lizard, you cannot just have a heat pad or a space heater or a heat emitter. They have to have a hot basking area like the sun, and they have to have UV light, so ultraviolet light that's actually updated every now and then, right? We can't just have old UV lights on them because it won't do them any good. That helps them to digest and process their calcium. These guys need correct supplementation. Diet-wise, they're pretty easy. You do have to give them bugs, but you can also give them like a salad once or twice a week if you want. Hi. These guys tend to, unfortunately though, if you get something wrong, they tend to have health issues. Even keeping them on loose substrate can sometimes get in their eyes and give them eye infections. They're just a little bit of a sensitive snowflake, in my opinion. So we actually don't keep our bearded dragons on any loose substrate. Some people do that, and I'm not like saying don't do it. I'm just saying be careful. These guys can dig and work up dust. If it's too dusty, it can get in their eyes. I heard about a bearded dragon once. I didn't actually see this, but I've seen other issues with this, just kind of like similarly. But I saw, or heard about rather, a bearded dragon getting an eye infection so bad they had to take the eye out because they were digging around. So it's just something to kind of limit or watch. Maybe it's like just an every now and then enrichment item that they get to dig, but not like every day, all day, if that makes sense. They also shed their skin too, just like any lizards. They need to be soaked every now and then too. Once a week is probably fine. What else? They don't need to be misted because they're not really a tropical animal or anything like that. But a nice big water dish that they can have the option to maybe dip a toe in every now and then or soak them once a week. Like I mentioned, they do need fresh water to drink. They don't always drink water. It's kind of frustrating, honestly. But when you soak them, it tends to encourage them to drink water, and they can soak it up through their body as well and get hydrated. They tend to get hydrated, though, from their salad. So at least once a week, they do need some sort of vegetation. That's going to help them stay hydrated, too. As you can see, she looks great in her body condition, but she was actually a little overweight when we first got her, which is another health issue these guys can have. Overweight bearded dragons is super common because they eat, and they don't stop. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, they're hungry. They're eating. Well, bearded dragons are opportunistic in the wild, so they're going to eat anytime they find something. But in the wild, they're working all those calories off by running around and things like that. These guys get so fat so fast if you let them. So don't do that. Don't overfeed them on bugs. Really just a salad once or twice a week, and then a few bugs every now and then is plenty of food. Do not overfeed your bearded dragon. If they're any fatter than this, don't let them get any fatter than that. She was quite large when we first got Debbie. That's why we named her Debbie, because she looked like a perfect round cupcake from the top. She was Big Deborah, and now she's Little Debbie, right? So we worked off a little bit of her weight. Sorry to out you there, but she loves her food. That's her favorite thing in the world, is eating. So I knew she would eat just fine for you guys. What else about their care? Lighting has to be correct. Please do all your research. A lot of people ask me, like, what do I do exactly for their lighting? Well, it kind of depends, because depending on how big your dragon is, depending on how big the enclosure is, because if you have a baby bearded dragon in a 20-gallon tank, you're not going to want something as hot as a 100-gallon tank. So you always want to just do your research. Whatever is recommended by, you can look up forums online. Breeders can give you a lot of good advice. It also depends on where you live. If your house is really hot, you don't want to go super hot with their lamps and things like that, because that can overheat them, and then they're going to be super wired and like maybe even aggressive. I've actually met a few dragons that were like that because they were kept so hot. Their energy was so high, they were losing weight, and they were kind of nippy and stuff like that, which is super duper uncommon for a bearded dragon. They're usually really good, like handling wise, pets, everything like that. But if they're too hot, they're going crazy in there. So you have to be careful with that. You don't want to go too hot, and you want a gradient. So if you have a nice long, big enclosure, that's the best, because you can give them a hot spot, medium, and then cooler on the other side. And the cool end is where you put your water and things like that, right? But their lighting has to be pretty much just right for them to be healthy. Their supplements have to be there 100% of the time. You're going to want calcium with D3 every single meal, whether it be salad or bugs of any sort. D3 calcium powder with D3. And you want to do multivitamin, a good brand of multivitamin for reptile powder, just a little bit on whatever meal once a week. So just once a week, but every single meal, multiple times a week that you're feeding them, within reason, don't make them fat. You want that calcium, because that's extremely important for bearded dragons. They can get metabolic bone disease And the most unfun, in my opinion, disease for a bearded dragon is the adenovirus. So adenovirus is, there's multiple types of adenovirus in animals and things like that. It's different species. But this is super serious, okay? Adenovirus in bearded dragons is 100% deadly, and sometimes they're a carrier and you don't know it. They show no signs or symptoms. Maybe you get another bearded dragon and it's extremely contagious. You're having trouble. It's extremely contagious. Now, it's not airborne, but you can simply hold one of your bearded dragons and then hold your other bearded dragon, and they can get sick from the other one just by indirect contact, if you will. It is actually oral to fecal, but that sounds gross, but it's pretty common with any animal. They're going to be going to the bathroom in their enclosure at some point, and they step in it, then they step over there, then they lick it at some point, right? Even if you're cleaning it up, they might have particles here and there. It's just the way it is with animals in general, right? They're not 100% clean. We do our best, right? But even if you use the same bowl, maybe this bearded dragon didn't finish her diet, which I could never imagine that happening, right? Did I get on your little foot there? I'm so sorry. So maybe she didn't finish her diet, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna feed it to my other bearded dragon. Well, if she had adenovirus, that other bearded dragon's gonna get it too. Now, what's really interesting is adenovirus in bearded dragon shows itself in like 10 different ways. So you don't even know what disease they have until you do a test. So here's my advice to you guys. Sometimes it's very extreme, and sometimes it's no symptoms at all, and sometimes it's anything in between. It can be upper respiratory symptom. It can be diarrhea. It can be shaking and neurologic issues. It's super sad. So take it from me. I've experienced it myself. It's definitely not a disease that only happens to like poor husbandry or dirty. It can happen to any bearded dragon. It can be maybe they just had it all along since birth from their mother, etc. Maybe it came from, secondhand from another. Maybe somebody's friend had one, and then they were like holding the other one, and it wasn't even direct. Maybe they were on somebody's shirt. Very scary, right? So what you want to do, unfortunately, there's no like cure and there's no preventative care really, other than to make sure you're clean, right? And we don't cross-contaminate anything with our dragons. So none of our, we have 2 bearded dragons. They don't share bowls until things are disinfected. They do share bowls, but things are clean and disinfected and set out with spray and things like that. We use a disinfectant every time we clean. If they travel and they have like a paper towel or a towel that they sit in for travel, that towel gets washed with hot water and everything. So we're doing our very best. But both our bearded dragons, before we proceeded to make them into an ambassador animal or even adopt them, to be honest with you, we got them tested. So how can you get your bearded dragon tested? So if you're looking to adopt a bearded dragon, this is a must in my opinion. You have to do this, otherwise you won't know if they have it or not. They may not ever show symptoms, or they might just suddenly show symptoms and you won't know what they have. But what you want to do, if you adopt a bearded dragon, especially if you adopt one from someone else, even if you get a baby one from a breeder, you're going to want to do this too. It's super inexpensive. It's like $50 and under. You're going to want to take them to your exotic vet that can see bearded dragons, obviously. They do a swab of their hind end where they go to the bathroom. They're going to do a swab. They're going to send it off to a specialist lab, and that lab is going to tell you yes or no, positive or negative, that they're a carrier or they have bearded dragon adenovirus. And it's super sad, but at least you'll know. If you still want to keep that bearded dragon, fine. You just shouldn't get another one. Right? So you don't want to keep spreading that. And if you do know that your bearded dragon she doesn't, but has adenovirus, you don't want to ever hold a bearded dragon and then pass them off to other people or etc. You don't want to spread it in any capacity because it is super contagious to only other bearded dragons. You can have other pet lizards and have a positive adenovirus bearded dragon. But that's a super sad thing, but it is super serious, right? It does happen. It's not super uncommon right now. So it's going around, unfortunately, quite a bit. You're making a big old mess, Debbie. We got Debbie tested as soon as we wanted to adopt her. We did not adopt her until we found out she was negative, and the previous owner was super okay with that. I just paid for the test for them, and she was luckily negative. Hooray! And she got to come live with us and be a animal ambassador. We already had another bearded dragon, which is Eddie. Eddie was also tested before we adopted him as well. Very important for us since we travel with our animals and they go see different people and they're held by different people or touched. We don't want that disease ever spreading, right? And it might even be a good idea to get them retested at some point. But we have tested both of our bearded dragons. It doesn't hurt them at all. It's literally just a little swab. It's like you're wiping their hind end and they send that off and that's all they need. They don't need like a big fecal sample, nothing. It's just a contact swab. And luckily, we're okay. It was like awesome to find that out. So take it from me, it's not a fun thing to go through, so that is very important if you want a bearded dragon. But that is why I actually don't recommend them as much as I recommend blue tongue skinks, because these guys have a ton of health issues. So what else? We talked about metabolic bone disease. You might hear that abbreviated as MBD. MBD affects all sorts of reptiles, especially lizards. The bearded dragons are prone to that if their calcium and their lighting is not correct, right? What else? You have to, they need a hotter environment. They're sensitive to substrate sometimes. There are ways to do substrate. We choose not to. We're doing things like tiles, and so we have different textures of tiles. We have different things for them to climb on. Also, these guys, our two bearded dragons, travel a lot. So they get a lot of different things to step on and whatnot. So they have a big variety there, but nothing loose substrate in their enclosure. That's just what I've chosen to set them up wise. Because I'm nervous that they might get eye infections and upper respiratory dust and things like that. So that's how we're doing it. It is a little bit of a pain to clean up because it's nothing absorbent, right? They're on kind of a hard surface, but they can certainly get away from their mess, no problem. So we just clean it up by wiping it away and cleaning the tiles and disinfecting them that way. What else? They're a little bit harder to feed than a blue tongue skink, just in the fact that you're going to have to get live insects. So these guys won't really eat dead crickets unless you wiggle them around a lot, and that's a pain. A lot of bearded dragons won't even take to eating it that way at all, and they can't just live on salad. They do need protein as well. They're true omnivores. They need a little bit of everything. In nature, by the way, it's great to be an omnivore because you've got lots of choices. You can survive a lot better than other animals that are specialized feeders that eat like one or two things. Both the blue tongue skink and the bearded dragon are doing very well in the wild. They're not endangered at all. Super important animals. What else about the bearded dragon? Bearded dragons are a little bit, I would say, quote unquote, better for handling than the blue tongue skink. Blue tongue skinks can sometimes be a little squirrely with their handling when they're younger. Bearded dragons can be that way too, but bearded dragons tend to kind of like sit with you a little better. They can kind of hang on to you, things like that. Some people like that a little bit better. Both of them have great personalities. They're just a little bit different. What else is different about you? Oh, these guys are egg layers. That's another challenge with keeping them. If you have a female, you're going to watch for egg laying. And sometimes they're going to want to lay in unfertilized eggs. Debbie has done that a couple of times. That's one way we know she's a girl, but it's also super easy to tell by the undercarriage for this species. So that is another difference between them and the blue tongue skink is number one, you can tell the gender when they're a substantial age. It's actually super easy to tell once they're like a teenager and up. These guys are a little bit more dimorphic. The blue tongue skink is monomorphic, meaning they don't look different at all. Blue tongue skinks are like exactly the same, like little clones of each other, male or female, whatever. So it's super hard to tell. Even breeders half the time cannot tell. Or most of the time, they have to like kind of put them together to see if they'll breed. If they obviously have a baby or something like that, it's a girl. These guys, you can tell externally just fine. If you don't know what you're looking at, you can always ask an expert or get on a forum or get on Facebook or Discord or something like that. But they are egg layers. So sometimes you'll see the females wanting to pass eggs and sometimes they'll have problems with that. These guys tend to be okay when that happens. Animals like tortoises and some other maybe chameleons, they tend to get egg binding issues, but bearded dragons can get egg binding issues too. She so far has had zero issue passing her unfertilized eggs. They're infertile. So they're just dud eggs. We feed them to our monitor lizard, actually, if we catch them in time and they're not like gone bad. Our monitor lizard appreciates that, and so does our tegu. Really likes eggs as well. And as you saw, BT, the blue tongue skink, also really likes eggs too, but we just do the drizzled chicken egg for BT's food. But I'm sure they would also eat bearded dragon eggs. Even in the wild, they eat eggs like that, bearded dragon eggs. These guys don't tend to really eat eggs. I don't know why. She hasn't tried to eat her own eggs. I'm really shocked because she eats everything else. And do you want the rest of your salad? Here it is. Surprised you're not just like woofing it all down. Go for it. What else? What else about you? They're pretty good pets otherwise, though. It's mostly their health issues and their care has to be really, really good for them to be healthy. Bearded dragons are great otherwise. They don't live as long as a blue-tongued skink, mostly because of their health issues. These guys tend to make it to 12 on average, but can live as long as 15 or 16. I've seen it happen. And blue-tongued skinks to live until they're like late 20s. So it's quite a big difference there with their age. Maybe that's a good thing, though. Maybe you are not wanting as long of a commitment as like a blue-tongued skink or a snake or a tortoise. Those guys tend to live a long time. Bearded dragons, 12 is the average age. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? I see some people tuning in. Hello. Viviana's here. Hi. Natural bacteria on their scales? I'm not sure. So we were talking about adenovirus. Adenovirus is a virus that is a contact virus. It's not like airborne. But bearded dragons specifically get it. Lots of animals actually have an adenovirus like variety or variant that they experience. The bearded dragon adenovirus only affects bearded dragons, no other lizards. So if you get a bearded dragon and they test positive for adenovirus, you can still have other pet reptiles. They should never get it. It's never been a problem in any of my years keeping reptiles. I'd never even like had a problem with the adenovirus until recently in my life, which is super sad. But it can happen to anybody, right? But I don't think it's like something that they all have, if that makes sense. So you either have it or you don't. It's a virus. Yes. I'm sorry you're sick. That's so sad to hear. I hope you get better real soon. Oh, I was sick recently too. Yeah, I was actually sick over my birthday weekend, but I'm okay now. I got some antibiotics and I'm fine. TMI? Sorry. Oh. As long as it's not the dreaded virus going around right now, right? Although we should all be vaccinated, so you will be okay. What do you want? You're looking at my hand and you're making me nervous. Bearded dragons are great for handling. I don't necessarily recommend like handling them while they're eating, right? Which is why we're setting her down on something so she can just be here. Do you want to eat? Some people do hand feed their bearded dragons though, but don't get bit. You can get bit. For their defenses, let's talk about that. We talked about the blue-tongued skink's defenses. They, the last lizard, they mimic snakes. They show their blue tongue. Some skinks, not the blue tongue, but other species of skinks that are like smaller, etc. They tend to have like toxicities in their body that actually taste bad and can cause neurologic issues in cats and other predators. What do? You'll run. They can run a lot faster than a blue-tongued skink. These guys can also climb a little bit. They can climb up a tree. Sometimes if it's like not like straight up, they can climb up like a sloping tree, no problem. A fence, if it has footholds, they can climb up that too. So like a chain link fence, they can climb up that. They can climb up a rock. They're much better climbers than the blue-tongued skink, so they can run and climb. These guys also have camouflage. The blue-tongued skink looks more like the snakes that they mimic, and I would say their pattern is a little bit camouflage, but blue-tongued skinks, when they want to hide, they're going to actually burrow. They're going to go underneath substrate of some sort, or in between the grass or something, or underground. These guys can literally be like up on a rock or against a tree branch or a log, and you won't even see them because they look like that, right? They look just like a rock or a tree, etc. They also have very, very rough scales. Let me show you. Can you see her back? Her back is pretty rough. Now, she does have these spikes right here on the side. See the spikes? Those spikes are just for show. They're not super sharp. Not like a hedgehog or something like that, or a porcupine. They're more for show to make them look tough. But they do have really, really rough skin on their back or their dorsal section, right? The blue-tongued skink has very, very thick skin, but it's smooth. It actually doesn't have any sort of roughness to it at all. Super smooth. These guys have extremely rough scales, and especially if you kind of like go backwards like that, it's almost impossible to pet them backwards or touch them backwards, right? That's going to help them stay protected in armor. That's another way to stay safe. You're harder to eat. You want to eat some more? Why don't you eat? Eat the things. Go ahead. It's harder to eat an animal if they're spiky and rough textured, unless you're a specialized hunter, like maybe like a hawk or something like that. Birds of prey are by far their biggest predator, their most common predator, and they don't like them. If they see a bird of prey, they will run or hide immediately. They could bite back and fight a little bit. They don't have sharp claws, so it's not like an iguana where they can scratch and things like that. These guys don't have a whip-like tail either, and they don't have tail autonomy, so their tail doesn't pop off and grow back. They can lose their tail just like they can lose a toe, but it's not going to grow back. Not very well. It might eventually have like a little nub. I've never seen a bearded dragon regenerate their tails. They are one of the few lizards that does not have tail autotomy. The blue-tongued skink does. Now that I think about it, blue-tongued skinks can lose their tail and then regenerate the tail in a matter of months, but it takes a long time. But that's another way that a blue-tongued skink can stay safe. These guys don't have that option. So typically a bearded dragon, if they feel threatened, will choose to either run away or stay still. They're going to camouflage. And they can bite if they feel super threatened. Now, as far as social time, like I mentioned before, they don't really like each other. So females might be in the same territory, but they're not going to be like next to each other. They prefer their space. They don't take care of their babies either. Babies are, they come from eggs. There she goes. She's going to eat some more. Perfect. We're feeding animals on this live stream, so you better eat. Debbie, she loves her food. So when they have their babies, they're going to lay eggs. And they can have a clutch from anywhere from 2 to 25, 30 eggs sometimes. Lots of eggs. She's had a whole lot of dud eggs for us. Oh my goodness. That piece of food is being stubborn. It will stick to my tongue. You see her cute little tongue. Both the blue-tongued skink and the bearded dragon have kind of a shorter tongue when it comes to being a lizard. They definitely don't have a forked tongue. And they don't have a chameleon tongue. They just have kind of a standard length tongue. And it does stick to stuff. They can pick up things with their tongue, just like she's doing right now, and then chomp up her food by eating it with her teeth. What else? Oh, so when they have their eggs, they're going to bury their eggs like most reptiles do. They'll bury it in substrate and leave them alone. And those eggs will incubate on their own. They'll hatch out and pop out of the ground as little baby dragons, and then they'll be on their own. They're not moms to their babies at all. They are, but they don't take care of them. That's what I mean. They're not great moms. And so not super social, but they do, of course, see each other for breeding and come together for breeding. And typically it's going to be one male in a harem situation where there's multiple females in his territory, but those females aren't like friends. They're not going to be like hanging out like you see some other lizards, like even iguanas. Sometimes iguanas will hang out a little bit closer than like a bearded dragon harem situation. They're going to be kind of avoiding each other. So they're not super into each other, not a social species. It's really a good idea not to keep any bearded dragons together. A lot of times when you go into pet stores, you'll see baby bearded dragons all kept together. That is not a good idea. If those dragons get hungry enough, they'll eat each other's toes, they'll eat each other's tail tips. A lot of times you'll see bearded dragons with missing toes and missing tail tips. Eddie, our other bearded dragon, has missing toes, which I imagine was from another bearded dragon when he was younger. It happens a lot. But I don't really know because he's another rescue. Eddie was actually roaming around a neighborhood, so we don't know anything about his history other than the people that found him. That's it. Which is, very secondary. I don't know where he came from. Nobody knows. Nobody claimed him. Here you go. Is that way you can see the best? The yellow? They do have color vision, by the way. Both lizards can see colors. Most lizards see color just fine. But yeah, not a lizard you want to keep with another lizard. The blue-tongued skink either. You just really don't want to cohabitate reptiles in general unless they're a social reptile. So like a red-footed tortoise. Red-footed tortoises, same gender groups get along just fine. That's why we have red-footed tortoises here once in a while. We've got 4 male red-footed tortoises. But a lot of tortoises don't like each other. There's certain species that will definitely fight and they don't get along. A lot of tortoise species do get along. So it just kind of depends. Social or solitary. But these guys, you don't want to keep them together with another bearded dragon. Not a good idea. They're not going to be friendly with each other. They're going to be very irritated to be in a small space or a smaller enclosed space with one, as opposed to like out in a territory out in the wild, right? Now, if you're a breeder, that's a different story, right? You got to put them together for breeding, obviously. I'm so glad you're negative for COVID and strep. Allergies, that's a pain, but I'm glad you're going to be okay. Yes. You're welcome. What was I saying? I forgot. I'm so distracted today. But yeah, you really just, if you get a bearded dragon, you want to have one at a time. That's how they're happier. Most reptiles are like that. Most snakes are like that. There's only a few snake species like garter snakes and some others that do live in groups. And those do fine together, but snakes you want to just keep in general. Ball pythons, corn snakes, all the common ones that we see as pets. King snakes especially. King snakes eat other snakes. So don't keep those guys together. And when snakes are especially hungry, some snakes eat each other too. Even snakes that are not known to eat each other because they're carnivores, they might take that opportunity. So you never know. So it's really a good idea to keep them by themselves. Oh, another social, not a reptile, but amphibian that we have is the firebelly toad. Firebelly toads can 100% be kept in groups. They do very well together. They can't hurt each other. Axolotls, we keep them separate because those guys can eat each other too. But yeah, the red-footed tortoises. Sometimes crested geckos do fine together. Only females, never ever males. If you have a big enough enclosure, you can keep crested gecko females. I would say just 2 maximum together. They do pretty good as long as they have enough places to hide and everything else. Better to keep them separated, but if they get along, that's usually fine. Like I said, our tortoises, but only certain types of tortoises can be kept together. Not every kind, definitely not. And I can't think of any other social reptiles that we have that are kept together. And a lot of social reptiles can still be kept separated, or social amphibians can be kept separated. You don't have to have a group. But firebelly toads are really cool together. Poison dart frogs are another popular kind of display frog that some people keep. And those guys can be kept together too. They don't eat each other. Nothing like that. A lot of frogs do eat each other, so be very careful with that. Are you about done? You about done? You're being a little bit sassy today. But still being very good. Debbie is another very popular animal to see in programs. She participates rather in a lot of petting zoo experiences and meet and greets and general presentations. She's an animal that you can hold and touch, not a problem, very safe. A lot of people who have no experience with lizards are a little apprehensive about touching her. She's a little rough to the touch, but it doesn't hurt. And these spines on the side, like I said, are pretty cool to touch because they feel like a hairbrush. Those are really cool. And of course, they call them the bearded dragon because they have the beard, which is just made of scales and spikes. It's not hair at all. It looks like hair. Well, Debbie, you did a great job just being gorgeous and eating your salad. You guys should also eat your salad out there. You don't have to put worms on your salad. You can eat your salad with croutons instead. But be like Debbie and eat a variety of food. Just don't eat too much food like Debbie does, right? Debbie, you were awfully large when we met you. I'm surprised she didn't try to bite my nose off for insulting her. But now she looks great. This is about what you would want. A female bearded dragon is going to look a little bit more round than a male bearded dragon when they're adults. So they might have a little bit more of a rounded body. That's just how they're usually shaped. Can you see her? There we go. Now you can see her tail and everything. But look how nice she looks. There's no belly hanging down. Nothing like that. She's kind of like spreading out her ribs right now to look huge. But that's about where you want them. That's about a maximum you want their body condition to be. You know, come over here. Run. Run. Do you want? That's how I talk to my animals. Am I weird? There you go. It's there for you if you would like one more bite. For the people. Do it for the people. Do it for the views. If I sprinkle it there, will you eat some? Maybe a little bit. Just one more bite. Only if you want to, okay? She's like, where are the worms? That's what I want. Oh, okay. I'll just hand feed you, my little princess. Okay, fair enough. Yum. Aww. Adorable. Do you guys like lizards? We sure do as well. We do have quite a wide variety of reptile friends to choose from. If you guys would like to have a reptile visit, presentation, experience, meet and greet, photo opportunity, whatever you would like, we can certainly help you out with that. We have a huge variety of reptiles to choose from. We've also got mammals and birds. Believe it or not, all we've shown is lizards today. We're not just lizards are us. We're actually once in a wild. So we do have mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates. Things like tarantulas, scorpions, and Madagascar hissing cockroaches. Perfect for spooky season or Harry Potter themes. We've even got an owl for crying out loud. But for your Harry Potter events coming up, super popular theming. I don't blame you at all. I myself am a Slytherin house. Hello, Slytherins, fellow Slytherins out there. But if you want a Harry Potter themed event, super easy with once in a wild animals. So we've got an owl, we've got a white ferret, or a dark ferret too. We can bring either or, but the white ferret makes sense for like the Malfoy situation, right? So the owl, the ferret, bullfrog, tarantulas, bugs, dragons, snakes, you name it, we got it. We don't have a cat like Crookshanks, and we don't have a rat right now either. what else is in the Harry Potter universe? There's so many animals in Harry Potter, right? And if you want any sort of themed event, even if it's not spooky season theme, maybe it's just something else, we can help you out with that. There's so many themes that work well with animals. Just let us know. We will do our very best to help you with animal programming that makes sense for your event coming up. We would love to help you out with that. This is my favorite events to do is themed events or presentation. Okay, you guys, it's been a lot of fun. I think I'm going to get going. I know we only have the 2 animals on. I hope you enjoyed it. It was just kind of chill tonight. We compared a bearded dragon friend to a blue-tongued skink friend, both omnivorous lizards from Australasia, but very different from each other in a lot of ways and also similar in a lot of ways too. It's been a lot of fun, you guys. Hopefully this is something you want to watch again. If you do want to watch some of our previous episodes, we have so many of them, go to our YouTube. Do us a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You won't regret it. We have a lot of content over there, mostly live streams. So we got some other little content too, short videos, random videos we've uploaded. We might even upload some more for you guys soon. Make sure and follow us over on TikTok as well. But any of the social media that you like, we're probably there. So follow us and subscribe today. And that will be a free way to help us out. If you want to support our animals and you like what you see here, you can always tip or donate. We've got Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. We even got an Amazon wish list at onceinawild.com. You can donate items to our wish list too. That still exists, by the way. Amazon is still a thing, even though the pandemic is getting better, right? You can still order your stuff on Amazon, and you can order stuff for the animals and send it to us if you would like. But the best way to support us is, of course, by booking your own animal program. So you get something in return. We've also got merch over at onceinawild.com. Please visit our website, onceinawild.com, and get you some merch, some Once in a Wild merch. We've got everything from stickers to clothes, all kinds of fun things. We actually ordered some not too long ago. I'm going to go try it on soon. So stay tuned for that. Maybe I'll reveal some of the merch. And that will help us out quite a bit. And every little bit helps feed the animals, helps take care of their veterinary needs, helps to keep the lights on, pay the staff, all those good things that every business has to do. And we greatly appreciate you guys just for watching and sharing, commenting, liking, following, all the things. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week on Once in a Wild Wednesday. And we'll have some different animals other than lizards, I promise. We'll have some different stuff. So if not, we will run a rerun. Hopefully we are live next week. I can't remember what's going on, but if we are, I will bring some different animals. And if not, we'll run another cute rerun of some of our other animals too. Whether we'll have something for you guys to see regardless, right? Well, you've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for just being here for us and supporting us. And we'll see you guys next time.
We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing once in a while, together. Once in a while, I wanna hear you say once in a while. And that's the fun for me and you.
Alrighty, thank you once again. Make sure to visit our website, onceinawild.com, to see which public events are happening in the San Antonio area. We've got one on the 29th and another one before that, so please make sure to check the website for details and follow our social media for much, much more, including our in-person events and whatnot. We will see you next week. Bye!